In 1914, great change was underway the whole world over. Europe was engaged in the Great World War, and in the United States, African Americans began to leave the oppressive South in hopes of finding equal opportunity and better living conditions in the North. It was the beginning of the Great Migration. The United States entered World War I in 1917, and nearly 400,000 African Americans served and fought alongside white Americans, helping to propel the Allied forces to victory. However, when the African Americans returned home to the South, they were not welcomed. The ugliness of racism brought on a surge of violence against Black people. There were lynchings and massacres. The push to join the Great Migration grew. They relocated to so many northern cities like Detroit and Chicago, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. and New York, and they embraced their freedom and they brought their talents. All of this energy coming together, giving birth to Alain Locke's New Negro movement, later called the Harlem Renaissance. And although this Renaissance, this rebirth, reached across this nation and across the Atlantic Ocean to parts of Europe, a new Black settlement in New York, Harlem, became its epicenter. The Harlem Renaissance was an explosion of Black excellence, of Black awareness. The Harlem Renaissance was a movement which featured Black culture, Black intellect, Black creativity, innovation, identity, pride. One of the most notable figures of the Harlem Renaissance, poet Langston Hughes, provided words of wisdom and validation to the hopeful when he wrote, "Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly." They listened. Their dreams came to life through the literature of Claude McKay, Countee Cullen, James Weldon Johnson, Angelina Grimke, Alice Dunbar Nelson, Zora Neale Hurston, and the music of Duke Ellington, Bessie Smith, Eubie Blake, Ma Rainey, Paul Robeson, and the dance of Josephine Baker, Bilbo Jangles Robinson, the Nicholas Brothers, the artwork of Augusta Savage, Jacob Lawrence, and Laura Wheeler Waring, and the philosophy and motivation of Marcus Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois, Arturo Schomburg, and A. Philip Randolph, just to name a few. We celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Harlem Renaissance and appreciate our program's participants as its legacy.
Daisy Loyola. I am 16 years old, and I go to school in Manhattan, New York at Community Health Academy of the Heights. My title piece is 920. I was taking AP Environmental Science this year, and one of the activities that we did was we had the option to go to the climate strike. So I took my camera along with me. There was a lot going on, and I just started taking photos. And there was that one photo in front of me that I saw, and I took it. For me, it's just saying that we're not paying attention as towards what we're doing currently. Our carbon footprint is really big, and we have to learn how to minimize it. I chose to do black and white because for me, I like to edit more towards the cooler side and the darker side of things. I think the image is more crisp when it's darker as opposed to lighter. Every single little imperfect thing is there and it's captured.
My name is Elias Springer. I'm 14. I go to Chez Nous Notre Dame, and the title of my piece is Just Another Hashtag. I'm tired of writing these poems about a soulless body lying on the ground because their skin couldn't catch the bullets, because violence is a virtue, or maybe they were just black enough to die, because his hands weren't high enough, for he did not know he would have to say goodbye. But you claim you try, so I'll just sit here quiet. I Can't Breathe won't become another example of how you're trying. The surviving victims of this pain will not become another hashtag. When I was younger, no one ever told me that it was possible to live just to die, or worse, to learn to survive. I don't want to survive, I want to live. Never knew it was so hard to ask of someone to let me live. Hands up, don't shoot. I'm just a kid, but look at me, now what am I? Sometimes I wish I could use my blackness as a security blanket, a mask I could put on and take off when I needed to, just in case, because I gotta get home, because my mom's gonna be worrying where I am, but I can't tell her in a cell. I don't want your sympathy. One day I will be free, but for now, no justice, no peace.
My name is Alice Springer Algerson. I am 13 years old. I go to the Fellowship of Learning School, and my piece is called Sunshine. For the piece, it was a picture of my sister, and it was a perfect shot of her face cut in half. It was her face was very sunlit. I thought that was really gorgeous, and so I wanted to capture that in drawing. I chose a painting for this one because the way the picture looked, I could really convey a sense of happiness and joy. I was determined to also use my markers because a few Christmases ago I'd gotten some markers from my mother and they were very good quality. So I decided to sit down and really try to do a really big piece. Art comes from a place of thought. The way that someone's feeling inside can very much affect what type of art they do. It's a time where there's a lot of stuff going on. And so I think there's a lot of things that people could use to draw and use art. As I said, it's just a matter of how you feel.
Common ground is realizing that under everyone's skin, no matter who you are, it is flesh and bones. We truly are, we all are the same person, we all have the same desires, we all breathe the same air, we shop at the same stores. It's crazy that we are all human beings, and it's really unfortunate that just because I look like this, I can't have a $20 bill without being targeted. I can't breathe without being targeted. And it's almost frustrating at this point that these issues keep resurfacing, So Common Ground is really taking that step above to realize that, like I said, we are all human beings. It's what this country was built upon. Unfortunately, it's seen so differently. It's hard for people to educate themselves on their account rather than listen to the news or what our administration is saying right now. It's unfortunate that people are so close-minded. And I think that's the step we need to take to be on common ground within our Black community ourselves, and then with, the whole world at a standstill. 100% my family is my inspiration. And I've grown up around such successful African Americans, For example, my grandfather was actually the first African American to receive his PhD in zoology at the University of Georgia. My dad, he's the only Black dentist under his own practice in our county. My sister has 2 degrees. And we've all gone to HBCUs. It's such a beautiful thing to be surrounded by such beautiful Black people, you know. And being the youngest, I've been able to see. I've seen so much, you know, the pain, the struggle, the success. It's real. It really is real. And you know, being a young African American woman, I take everything and I absorb my environment. I see and I hear everything, and that's also how I educate myself. Sometimes it's okay to be quiet and listen to people, understand them. You know, not listen to respond, but listen to understand more so. And you know, being around these successful African Americans only inspires me to go on and exceed their accomplishments, to keep their legacy going. My mom and I always talk about if Black culture was put into the curriculum, it would be, everyone would have such different viewpoints of everything that's going on. And I think, for example, for the Harlem Renaissance, I almost had to go on and do my own research because this topic was touched so little in school. And it's the same curriculum every year, and it's so programmed. It hurts that no one was really truly able to see how beautiful that the Renaissance was. And it was definitely a turning point for Black culture. No one had really ever seen such beautiful art and music and theater and literature. It had such an influence on everyone. It allowed the Black community to come together, to have self-awareness and pride on their Blackness. And people were able to see that. And it was a beautiful thing. And it was such an influential time for America, I would say. And it's amazing that that time period had such a strong influence on the decades coming.